Welcome to the Sailing to Success podcast, the show created exclusively for entrepreneurs and small business owners looking for a safe port in the storm of fast-paced business growth. Lindsay Phillips is the founder of Smooth Sailing Online Support, a company dedicated to helping entrepreneurs and small business owners increase customer service, run their business more effectively, and increase their profits. Prepare to be inspired and learn some practical tips and strategies you can use in your business today. And now, welcome your host and captain for this 30-minute excursion, Lindsay Phillips.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sailing to Success podcast show. I'm your host and captain, Lindsay Phillips, for this 30-minute excursion. And for those of you that don't know me, I am the owner of Smooth Sailing Online Support, helping you grow a smooth business. And what I love to do on my podcast is share practical tips. And I mean, sometimes I delve into things that aren't necessarily, businessy, because it affects our lives, right? Whether it's finances or health and wellness, what's going on in our lives around us, it all factors in. So I'm really thrilled to be speaking with Felicia Gopaul today, who is a certified financial planner. And what I love is that not only is she an author and a speaker, but she's an advocate for women to take charge of their finances. So we're going to be talking about the 5 Ds and how you should prepare for it and how to create financial independence. So let me tell you a little bit more about Felicia before we start. She's the founder of Financial Control Mastery, a company that helps women build a solid foundation for their wealth building and financial independence goals. So in the past 23 years, she's helped thousands of women take control of their finances and build their wealth. She's the author of the Amazon.com bestselling book, Preparing for the 5 Ds, Divorce, Disability, Downsizing, Disasters, and Death. So thank you so much for joining me, Felicia.
Oh, it is my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And as I just mentioned earlier, as entrepreneurs, our lives are more than just, the landing pages that we're creating and our clients. I mean, there's our health and wellness and our family and finances is such a huge part of it, right?
It is. And it's a part that for whatever reason, some women neglect.
Oh my God, that's so true. I think, is it denial? Like, why do we avoid our finances?
I don't know that it's necessarily denial, but I would say that it is probably something along the lines of lack of confidence. We just don't feel confident that we're making the right financial decisions for ourselves.
That's a good point. And it can be really overwhelming, right? I mean, sure, you may understand your cash flow and your bank account, but I mean, there's like investments and there's funds and there's, estate planning and RSP. There's so much and it can be really overwhelming. But it's like, to me, and I'm sure you agree as well, we go to the doctor when we're sick or we need medical advice. Why don't we reach out for more help when it comes to finances?
I talked to a woman the other day, and one of the things that she says is she thinks that she can't afford it. Oh. She thinks it's going to be so expensive that she can't afford it. And she also said something that I thought was really interesting. She says, it seems to be stuff that, like when they were passing out knowledge of personal finances, she was sick that day. So she just didn't get it, and it seems like it's something that everybody else knows, but stuff that she doesn't feel like she knows.
That's a good point. I know for me, it's hard to admit that you don't know, finance stuff, right? It feels like we should automatically know and be savvy when, reality speaks, come on now. Why would we expect that of ourselves? It's silly.
It is kind of silly because when you think about it, I mean, the women that I work with are really smart, they're talented, and they're successful. And so they have all these parts of their lives that they are smart, talented, and successful in. And then there's their finances. And this is just an area where they feel a little bit of shame, and they don't feel like they have the knowledge and education that they have in other parts of their lives. And what I'm really looking to do with writing the book and developing the course is helping women really bridge that gap so that they can get power in this particular area of their life, just like they have it in so many other parts of their lives.
That's true. And there is a lot of shame with, not having your finances in order or not knowing where you're at or where you're going to be. It's kind of weird when you think about it. I mean, it's okay to not know everything.
It is okay, but it's also an area that typically men have been leading in women's lives. True. And so it's an area that, for whatever reason, we have deferred, oftentimes to our significant other, our partners, or to the financial advisors that we're working with, as opposed to taking control and learning this on their own. Now, I'm, of course, not saying this is true for all women. Right. There is certainly a segment of women that have really deferred this conversation off.
That is so true. Now, what do you consider financial independence? That's kind of a broad term.
It is kind of a broad term. And when I think about financial independence, it's having the resources that you need that are generating your income beyond your basic expenses. So let's put it this way. Sure. So, Lindsay, your basic expenses are, call it $2,000 a month. Okay. So in the United States, we have Social Security. You may get the money that you need for the $2,000 you need, or pretty close to the $2,000 you need, from working and getting Social Security benefits. So what financial independence is the money on top of Social Security, above the $2,000, right? That is coming into you, that provides you with financial independence. And what financial independence means is being able to have a little bit more freedom in your life. Mm-hmm. It's being able to perhaps retire early or stop working early, or it's about perhaps quitting a job that you don't like. Mm-hmm. It's traveling the world. I mean, we all have these great ideas of what we're going to do beyond our working career, and financial independence gives you the resources that you need in order to make that true.
So would you say being debt-free is a big element of being financially independent, or is there crossover? Would you not mutually say one is the other? Do you know what I mean?
So I do know what you mean. And oftentimes a element of financial freedom is being debt-free. Okay.
So it's not the be all and end all, but obviously it's ideal.
Well, because one of the things that happens is with, think about it, when there is something very comforting about having your house paid off when you're in retirement. Yeah. So you know that no matter what, you'll be able to stay in your house, right? Yeah. And for women, that is especially true because we often will outlive our partners. So we'll be in that house by ourselves. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. And so because we're in that house by ourselves, we want to make sure that nobody can take it away from us. And that's really financial independence. Okay. It gives you that peace of mind about your future, and knowing that you can do what you want to, what you plan to, what you hope to do after you stop working, because you have the resources to take care of it.
So what should I don't know if I'm going out of order here, but what should our goals be with financial independence? Like, to me, it's like, okay, I should be financially independent when I'm, 55, they all Freedom 55 they hear on TV. Should I be financially independent when I'm 65? Like, are there specific standards?
The short answer is no. Okay. And remember that everybody's idea of financial independence is very different.
That's true.
So there's a whole group of young people out there who are in their 30s, early 40s, who are in this category called FIRE, financially independent, retire early. So
I've never heard that term before.
at 40-ish, they're able to no longer work unless they choose to.
That's crazy.
However, the people that I work with have been working through all that time. They've been educating their kids. They've been doing all that sort of stuff. And so they haven't necessarily put aside the resources to retire in their 40s. So for them, it's about setting what's the goal. Let's look at what do you need.
Okay.
And then let's take a look at what you already have accomplished and what we can get done in the next 10 years, 20 years that you have until you stop working. And that for us will help determine when we can be financially free.
So everyone's goals are customized, or everyone's version of financial independence is different.
Yes, because I want to travel. You may not want to travel.
Right.
I may want to stop working when I'm, I may want to stop working. I may never want to stop working,
Yeah.
Sometimes, however, like yesterday I wanted to stop working. Today I worked up with a little bit more vim and vigor. And today I'm looking, maybe I'll retire in my 60s or something. So it really can depend on what you want it to look like. And remember, there's also different stages of it. So the first stage might be to have a fully paid off house, and that might be financially independent for you. I want a fully paid off house, and I want to be able to travel. That might be another level of it. I also want to leave a legacy to my grandchildren, and that might be another level of financial freedom. So it's really not about a set point. Okay. It's really about whatever your goals are, and your goals can change. Like I have a girlfriend who just had a grandbaby. All of a sudden, everything is related to this grandbaby, and she's planning, not only do I want to, teach this kid whatever I want to teach this kid, but now I also want to perhaps educate this kid.
Right.
And now, so things can change over time.
Makes sense. So let's move towards your book. So explain to everyone what those 5 Ds are.
They're divorce, disease, downsizing, disaster, and death. And that seems a little bit, I've been told, it seems a little depressing. And certainly it's not intended to be depressing, but I want you to think about it instead of preparedness. I want you to think about readiness. Readiness is very different from preparedness.
Oh.
So readiness is the state of being fully prepared for something. Not necessarily that it's going to happen or you want it to happen, but you are ready for it if it happens. Because the reality is bad things do happen to good people. Yeah. And as a woman of a certain age, I've lived long enough to have either been through situations or seen my friends, my girlfriends, my mother my mother's been through a divorce. My husband's been downsized. I had a heart valve that wouldn't close. And so I had I was concerned about whether or not I was going to be around to raise my kids. So we've all lived long enough, or many of us have lived long enough to have seen these things happen. And while, as I said, we don't want them to happen to us, wouldn't it be powerful to be in a position where if it was to happen to you, you were ready and prepared and you could take it on?
Yeah. And there's so many people that don't even have wills, or, there are these instances like death where, it can financially cripple you, or especially with divorce and downsizing. And so I'm assuming your books then within the 5 Ds explain how you can prepare yourself for these things?
Yeah, actually it is. I basically talk about a couple of different things. First and foremost, it's start. I think oftentimes we wait for the perfect time to start. Yeah. And the reality is there is no perfect time to start.
Totally.
There is no perfect time to start. So start where you are. And to not beat yourself up. So when I tell the story of when I first started saving, I saved $5 a month. Now, most people, when they hear that I started with $5 a month, I'll tell you what my friends said. My friends were like, why bother?
Right.
Why bother? $5 a month, what is that going to do for you? And the thing about the $5 for me is it was my stake in the stand. This was my commitment to myself that I was going to put away $5 a month every single month for myself. And it was just me taking control of my finances. And at the time, you know, all I can afford consistently that I knew I'd be able to do was $5. And so I tell women to start where you are. Do not measure yourself against those 20-somethings who were in the FIRE generation. Who are retiring in 30 and 40. That's their life. That's not your life. And there's nothing wrong with starting where you are.
And the key thing I think too is, you know, whether it's $5 or whatever it is per month, you're creating a habit, right? You're creating action every month. And then, you know, maybe a year from now, you can make that $10. But the point is you're consistently taking that action and it's becoming a habit, which is a good habit. And then exactly, like start now and then you can change it and add to it later.
Yes, absolutely. And that's exactly what I talk about. I talk about, let's get started. If you are at, you know, you're saving 1% of your income, let's raise it to 3. If you were starting at 5%, let's raise it to 10. I mean, you just make the habit to not only start, but to consistently add to it. And I think that that's really the key to getting started and being financially ready for whatever life can throw at you.
That's true. And then just having that like contingency fund, so to speak, in your bank account. Now let's kind of talk about some of the fives. And then obviously we're not gonna be able to, you know, go through all the tips, but I would love to share at least one tip for each of the 5 if that's doable. So I know one is divorce. What advice would you give someone? Like, how do you prepare for divorce? Financially
prepare
a whole different issue.
Yeah, that is a different issue. So I would say first and foremost, know what's going on with your finances. So if your spouse is the person who is in control of, or is the person who is
paying the bills and
all the bills, you've got to know that. You've got to know how much you've got in bills. You've got to know where the assets is. You've got to know that you're the beneficiary on his life insurance. Right. You got to know all of that sort of stuff so that if you got divorced, you would be able to first and foremost, know how much you're due. But the other piece of that is to just know. There's a lot of comfort in knowing what's so about your finances.
Well, it's knowing your rights too, in the, you know, because it affects your children. If you have children in the scenario, like it affects your children, it affects your, you know, well-being on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, the more knowledge you walk into that with, the better, I can only assume.
Yes, that's definitely very true.
Perfect. Now, what about disaster? What kind of disaster? You mean like floods and your house burns down, like that kind of thing?
Well, certainly there's those sorts of disasters. You know, I happen to live in California. At the time, there was the Loma Prieta earthquake. You know, I was also there when they had the Oakland fires, and I was also there. And then I was in New York when the towers fell down. So you know, disasters are something that I think about. Last year at Christmas, right before Christmas time, a house around the corner from me had a fire. So I think to myself, oftentimes people don't expect a fire, but you can be prepared. And preparation in the area of disasters is often just about having the right insurances in place and knowing, again, your rights under those insurance policies.
And even insurance can be confusing, right? All the different policies and the ins and outs, and you know, I just went through life insurance and we changed our policy, and my head exploded by the end of it. I've got it in place. I'm all good.
Good.
Now, so moving on to life insurance, I'm assuming that's one of the things that you talk about when preparing for an instance of death.
Well, I think to myself, and it really kind of goes back to what we were just talking about. One of the stories that has happened in my practice is there's a woman who was married to a man who it was her first marriage, his second, but he hadn't changed the beneficiaries on his life insurance policy.
Oh my goodness.
And so when he died unexpectedly early, the proceeds went to the first wife.
Boo.
Yeah.
That went down well.
Yeah. So I was talking to her and then I was just like, well, who is this? And she was like, oh, that's his ex-wife. And I was just like, well, that's who's on his policy. I can only talk to her. And of course, first wife was not happy to be a first wife because second wife replaced. So she kept all the money. She felt that was her due because she had been replaced. So, I mean, you know, that's kind of a crazy example. But, I mean, the other side of it is, of course, you know, somebody who was expected to live a long time that you thought you were going to go into your non-working years with is no longer around. So their income is no longer around. And this can be both financially devastating as well as mentally devastating. And I think it's really important that you you know, my area of expertise is the financial, is to let you be okay if something were to happen to your significant other.
Perfect. And downsizing is not one that I would have thought would have been in those 5 Ds. Because you think, okay, downsizing, you're just going to save money because you're moving to a smaller house, you're getting rid of your stuff. I mean, how should one prepare for? I actually have my in-laws right now that are downsizing. So what wisdom do you have for that age bracket?
So I think I'm using the word downsizing a little bit differently than you are. I'm actually thinking about it in terms of a job layoff. And so a job layoff is when you're getting downsized. And so the big preparation there is to kind of know, if you can, that it's coming, and then be able to make the adjustments as quickly as possible, saying that you're going to be okay. So when my husband was downsized from his company, I think it took him about 7 months to get a new job.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but if he didn't have the really generous policy that his company had, it could have been really devastating, because what happens oftentimes is people don't think it's going to take as long to get
always,
and they also think that they're going to be making as much money as they used to be making, which may or may not be the case. So if you are downsized and you're still spending like you're making, you know, significantly more than you're currently bringing in, that could be financially devastating. And for a man in particular, you know, there's a lot of their self-worth is tied to them working, you know, and so you also, as a woman, may have to deal with how he feels about himself when he gets downsized out of a job that he enjoyed going to every day.
Yeah, I actually experienced that myself right when my daughter was born. That was great timing.
Oh yeah, it's like,
oh my God.
Well, I think that's the interesting thing, Lindsay, is the fact that it always happens at the most inconvenient time. It always happens at the most inconvenient time. A friend of mine just got downsized out of his position. And one of the things is he saw some things that were happening in his employment that made him think that, maybe my job isn't as safe as it could be. So he just started banking money and putting it aside. And that's something that a woman could do, is just being financially ready for those sorts of periods, so that maybe you still have to make some adjustments in your lifestyle, but not go from, you know, really nice lifestyle to, you know, a very frugal lifestyle, because you haven't made those adjustments and you don't have the reserves that you need in order to take you through.
And I guess you really have to be in grips or whatever, like understand what your expenses are and what can you cut out if you need to, and what are crucial. And
I mean, as I said, we were talking at the first about the fact that some women have no idea about this stuff.
Yeah.
So, it's really hard for you to make the adjustments if you don't really know how much adjustment you need to make. You didn't have any idea that it really costs, you think it's cost you about $3,000 to run your lifestyle, but no, it's really costing you about $5,000. There's a big difference between those two numbers.
And yeah, I just was, well, I'm assuming the same holds true for business owners. Really, I just went through my bank accounts and getting all my stuff ready for my taxes. And like I've got monthly bills, Dropbox, Basecamp, whatever they are. And then you think, okay, it's just $10 here, $11 there, whatever it may be. And then of course for me, converted to Canadian. And then when I was itemizing it, I'm like, wow, there's really more than I thought there was. I'm like, dang, which one, I can't cut any of them out because they are crucial, but just being aware that, what your true monthly costs are.
Well, the other side of it is, I took a look at the beginning part of the year at my business expenses, and I realized there was stuff that I was just paying for that I really wasn't using.
Yeah, so that does happen too.
When I looked at that, Lindsay, it was $500 a month.
Wow. And then, just taking that time to review it saved you $500 a month. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I know. Ignorance is not bliss.
No, not in this area.
That is true. Now, how do you look at disability? Is that like if you don't have disability insurance, something goes wrong, you're sick, you're injured, that kind of thing?
Absolutely, because one of the things is, and I remember when I first got married, this was a conversation for my husband because he thought of that as an expense, right? He thought, I don't want, and I should be fine. And I was just like, honey, what's your biggest asset? And he was just like, well, our house. And I was like, no, it's your ability to make your wages so that we can pay for the house and for the kids' education and so we need to protect that, sweetie. So once he kind of got on board with that, we were fine. And again, disability insurance is often, disability can often be handled inside of that. But the other thing is, haven't you ever had a day where, I've been working out, trying to get healthier. Mm-hmm. And so go to the gym, and then the next day, I did something and my back is just tweaked. And it's just like all of a sudden, it didn't happen at work, it didn't whatever, but as a business owner, one of the things that I have to be concerned about and think about is sometimes other things that I do impact my ability to work. And I think that that's an important ingredient. And oftentimes it can be a lot more expensive to run your household than you really think it is.
That is true. Now, what is the importance of being prepared? Like in all these items, if you really get that in order, how is that going to help you in the long run?
Well, I just think that if you are ready for these events, they don't have to be devastating events. They could just be things that happen in your life.
Right.
Because if you keep living, things are going to happen in your life. But there could be stuff that could take you out. And anything in these areas, these are the 5 areas that I see that most often can really disrupt a woman's finances.
Now, is this book geared to, I should have asked you this at the beginning, is this book geared towards women or for anyone?
Well, the book was really written for women because my practice is really for women. But the thing that I have heard from other people that have read it, the men that I've heard read it, is this is good advice for everybody.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's really just good advice for everybody. It's important that you understand where your finances is. It's important that you have some sort of plan and strategy to shore up any gaps between where you should be and where you are, and then have a plan to move you forward into the category of what you need. Because ultimately, we all want to get to financial independence. And until the stuff is taken care of, you really aren't financially independent.
No, and also just preventing being financially crippled. I mean, that's a scary thought.
I mean, because as I said, the women that I work with are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. So we don't have a whole lot of time to recover, and so if any of these things were to happen right before retirement, which is oftentimes, in my case, going to be the same time I'm paying for college. I'm paying for college and I'm thinking about retirement, and go through some particular illness in my life, those would be really a triple whammy at the same time. And I'm not sure if I wasn't ready that I could weather that without going into my retirement age and being a bag lady, which of course none of us want.
No, we don't. And just switching the topic slightly, how do you teach your children? I know you've got children. And I have mine are 7 and 11. How do you teach children about preparing for these things? Like, because they're not going to understand a lot of these concepts. But to me, it's like the school boards or whatever, like we need to educate our children earlier in life.
Well, I often will say to my kids, if you take care of your money will take care of you.
Ooh, I like that.
I from a very young age, and it didn't go down well, I made my children pay for stuff with their own money so that they could actually have the experience of letting it go.
Yeah.
And so me and my oldest daughter laugh nowadays, but she went through a stage where she had to have Barbies. So it wasn't that she didn't have Barbies, but she always felt that she needed more. And so now we're looking at the fruits of that. So her and her sister have about the same amount of money, even though she's 3 years older than her in their bank accounts. And so I was telling her that was a lot of Barbies, wasn't it? And she was just like, wow, mommy, I didn't realize the impact of my Barbie buying. So, I mean, you have to kind of put it into terms that they understand. Right now, I'm actually working with my girls to help them learn like run a business, and so just kind of teaching them. It's just like, well, if you buy this, you have to pay this, you have to do this, and you have to do this, and just kind of making it so that this concept that for many women is incomprehensible, something that is part of their daily lives. Yeah. They've grown up talking about money. They've grown up understanding money. They've had to buy things with their own money. And it's not because I can't afford it. It's just that I want them to see the value of having to part with their own money for their decisions. And we talk about the fact that my husband used to be the king of the dollar store. And so he would take the girls, and they used to love shopping with him because he would buy them something at the dollar store every single time. And I made the comment that, yes, but think about how long that lasts. Whatever you bought at the dollar store fell apart immediately. However, if it was something that you bought at the regular store that wasn't $1, you've still got it around a week, 2 weeks,
no doubt.
5 years later.
God, kids in the dollar stores.
Yes.
I actually made my kids save up to buy their own tablets. And they saved their like Christmas money and their allowance, and then they forked. I mean, we chipped in a little bit extra, but like they saved up and they forked it out.
And what I find is they take better care of it because they've done
very much so.
It's their money.
I know. And the other thing, which I found interesting, is Emily had a gift card for Old Navy. So we went shopping, but to see her like make choices based on how much money she had. So she didn't buy this, yoga pants that was $25. Was that more important than getting 2 cute t-shirts that were $10 each? Do you know what I mean? Like making those choices and what was on sale and what wasn't, because that's real life. So it was interesting to see how she made the choices herself. And yeah, it was kind of neat. And she was like 6, I think, at the time, but stuff like that. But yeah, if you have any other tips on how to teach your children how to handle money, I think that's great.
I think the biggest tip is to discuss money in front of your children, and let them, a girlfriend of mine has been suggesting, though I haven't followed up on it, that she, like when she's paying the bills, she has her daughter right there alongside of her. So her daughter can see how much it costs for gas and electric and all that sort of stuff. And then write the checks. the reason I can't do that is because, I'm in the digital age. I pay everything electronically.
Yeah, exactly. You're not hitting those buttons on the computer to pay stuff. Forget it.
Yeah. So I was just like, so it's much harder. It's harder to teach that lesson, but I like the concept of having my kids understand money, because when I grew up, and I don't know if your parents were the same, but when I grew up, my parents didn't like to talk about money.
No.
And I think that is something that we really do our kids a disservice, because I remember at some point, and your kids have probably been through this, my daughter was just like, I said something like, I can't afford that. And she was like, just go to the ATM.
Yeah, totally. I'm like, it so does not work that way.
I was like, no, I have to put money into the account so that I could take it out so that I could buy that. And I'm choosing not to do that because I have some other things that I need to take care of. And so, my youngest daughter in particular will ask, well, what do you got to do other than pay for whatever it is that I want to do? And so I would have a conversation with her about that. I think it's a little disconcerting to have have those kinds of phone conversations with a 6-year-old, but she's not. She has learned that lesson well, and it serves her well now.
Yeah, no, that's a great tip. I wouldn't have thought of that, because it's like, I mean, they have asked every now and then, how much does it cost for this? And then, you say, and they're like, oh my God. But the thing they burned me on recently, Felicia, was there was an ad for something on TV. And of course, I'm like, good luck getting that from Santa. Like, that's expensive, right? Mm-hmm. And they're like, but you don't have to buy it. Santa brings it. And I'm like, you're so right. I can't argue with that. Dang it. Kid logic. Well, I love that you're helping women with finances, because it is so important. And if you have control over your finances, it's so empowering, right?
It is so empowering. I think that that's ultimately why women want to have financial independence, is to take that power back and really be able to do in their lives and for their lives what they want to, as opposed to what they feel like they have to do.
Totally.
I think that's one of the key distinctions, and one of the reasons why the women that I work with work so hard for their own financial independence.
Awesome. So how can people get this book, Felicia?
So the easiest way to get the book is to go to www.financialcontrolmastery.com/book. And that will take you to my Amazon page, and you could buy the book right there.
Perfect. And now, do you offer courses, or how can people work with you to help them with their finances?
Well, it's actually, thanks for asking that question. It's actually the ideal time. I'm about to launch a course starting January 9th called their Financial Earthquake Readiness Course.
Oh, okay.
Because, when these sorts of the 5 Ds happen in a woman's life, it often occurs like an earthquake, something overwhelming, devastating. And if you can get ready for that, as I said in the beginning, that is a better situation than just letting it happen to you. So if you are interested in the financial, in that course, go to www.financialcontrolmastery.com /earthquake, and that will take you to the sign up page for that. I will tell you that I'm still developing the sales page, so it's really just leading you to a page that's got a link to pay for it. But I will also be, over the next coming weeks, putting out some more material that support that. So if you're interested in the course, Financial Control Mastery /earthquake.
Perfect. And we'll have that link up on the show notes as well. So thank you so much for those tips. I know it, for me, food for thought. I'm being prepared for things. And like you said, what are you waiting for? Start now and get ready now, because you never know when those things are going to come up.
And it doesn't mean that if you are getting ready for them, if you're getting ready for them, that they're going to happen. Yes. I think sometimes people hold life insurance like that. I don't want to buy life insurance because that means I'm going to die. But if you're preparing for the 5 Ds, the chances of all 5 of them happening in your life in the next day or so is pretty remote. But there is power and there is comfort in knowing what's so about your finances.
God, yeah.
There's power and comfort and having a plan to address them so that you're not a victim.
And that peace of mind so you can sleep at night.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, Felicia. I really appreciate your time. And I was excited about your book launch. So it was great that we had a chat about it.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And I really do appreciate the opportunity to share.
Perfect. So that is it today, folks, for this episode of Sailing to Success podcast show. You can find this and my other episodes at lindsayphillips.com, and along with my videos and blogs. And of course, you can find out more about what I do with Smooth Sailing Online Support at ssonlinesupport.com. So have a profitable and productive week, folks, and may the winds always be at your back.
You've been listening to the Sailing to Success podcast, the show created exclusively for entrepreneurs and small business owners looking for a safe port in the storm of fast-paced business growth. To make sure you don't miss a single profit-boosting show, subscribe to this podcast at iTunes and www.sailingtosuccesspodcast.com. To learn more about how Lindsay and her team can help you increase customer service, run your business more effectively, and increase your profits, go to www.ssonlinesupport.com. That's www.ssonlinesupport.com. Now go and implement what you've learned and come back next week for more Sailing to Success podcasts.